Hello, David here with
Courtney.
And this is the post-race podcast. And this episode is number 5. And today we'll be talking about the Klickitat Trail Half Marathon. This event actually offers a full marathon as well as a 5K. But we both did the half marathon. And so this actual event took place November 3rd, which was last weekend for us, I think.
Yep.
And basically it's down in the Columbia River Gorge area, place called Klickitat, obviously. Very, very beautiful place. That area, if you don't know, was kind of ravaged by wildfires. I guess it was 2 years ago now, and it's still recovering down there. Although this particular area wasn't affected, but on your drive there, depending on where you come from, you definitely see the ramifications of those fires and stuff. But overall, it's a super beautiful area. It's a cool time of year down there because it's likely to be freezing or frosty, maybe a little bit of snow. You never know. And so, yeah, that's kind of a brief overview of the race. Of course, it's put on, I think, by the local community. I should probably know the actual race organizers, but I don't. However, I know it benefits like the local youth sports and stuff in that town. Very small town, very quaint. It's pretty cool. So, jumping into the actual meat and potatoes of this thing. Why did we choose this race? Well,
it wasn't close. I mean, it was, but
it was pretty close.
4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, the total drive time is anywhere between 3 and 4 hours for us to get down there. But it's a pretty fast half. I mean, it's as close to a road as you can probably get. The trail itself we'll talk about the actual trail here in a bit, but it's interesting, I guess, in that sense. So you can kind of do a faster half marathon, so it's a good gauge for speed, I suppose, and it's kind of towards the end of the year, so I know for me personally, I just wanted to see if I still had, the ability to just run straight for 13 miles, because it's been a while since I've actually ran on, non-trails where I'm varying it with hiking and stuff like that. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do it.
The reason why I wanted to do it, I just kind of signed up for it because he signed up for it. So I didn't really have much of a reason why I wanted to do it. I just kind of piggybacked off of him.
The classic tag along. So, yeah, I mean, that's all it takes. And so another reason why we picked this race was because it started later. It actually started at like 10:30 a.m., I think. But you have to take a shuttle to the start because it's a point-to-point race along this, I think it's the Klickitat River Trail. Could be wrong there. But it's a trail that's very much, it's as close to like a bike path as you can get, really, but it's not paved or anything like that. So there is some gravel and things like that. So I'll just talk about the actual trail now. So like I said, it does take place on that river trail. So it runs right alongside a river almost the entire way. And it can be pretty at times, but overall it's not that great of a trail. I mean, so not only does it run along the river, but it also runs along the road. And so it's a lot like just running on a forest road that's been used a lot. So there are a lot of spiky gravel.
Oh, yeah, the spiky gravel is the worst.
Yeah, and that wears on you after a while. And I was trying out some new shoes that I wanted to review, the Nike Kiger shoes, Terra Kiger 4s. It's a mouthful. So I was using new shoes, and that was affecting my time there. But yeah, the jagged gravel definitely hurts after a while. I can't imagine doing a full marathon on that, what your feet would be like. But
well, and it's hard to look up too. A lot of the time you're looking down because of the gravel, so it's hard to see a lot of the pretty views.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the trail itself, it's point to point, and it's actually just a constant gain. So it's just 500 feet of gain throughout the 13 miles, 13.1 miles. So there really isn't any downhill. You're just constantly at this very minor grade running uphill, which, I mean, a lot of the time you don't really notice it. There's a couple steeper sections, but I mean, you notice it kind of in your effort towards the end. You're like, oh, this is harder than normal running this distance. So
Yeah.
that played into it a little bit. But so it's a unique trail in that sense. I mean, you can kind of get a faster time on it than a normal trail or half marathon, probably, at least a lot of them, because there isn't really any steep. You know, it's very runnable. You can run the whole thing, no problem. But yeah, the gravel definitely affects it a bit, and then that elevation does catch up with you a little bit towards the end, at least for me. And so yeah, that's kind of an overview of the race and why we chose it. Training going into it, you can go first.
I had little to none again. This was a week out from the last race that we had done. So I was sick the last race, so I didn't really train much this race as well. I maybe ran like 3 times on a treadmill before this race. So 6 miles total probably. And I hadn't ran a half in, gosh, I don't know, since his 100-miler. And we didn't really run a lot of that. So really, since the very beginning of September, I hadn't ran a quality run, I should say. So little to no training.
Yeah. Well, my training was actually pretty good. I mean, in respect to everything going on. So still kind of coming off that 100-miler, so I'm not back up to the mileage that I had been prior to that. But I definitely have gone up a decent amount in volume. I think I was close to 30 miles a week going into this race. And I actually did like my first kind of longer run, which was up Capitol Peak in Capitol Forest, which is just under 12 miles with a couple thousand feet of climbing. So it's a really good training run. I like that a lot. I mean, it kind of sucks, but it's good for training for sure. So I felt pretty good going into this. I mean, I knew I could do it. There was no question about that. It was just how fast I was going to go. And I actually did that training run, I think, a couple days before this race. So it was more just like I wanted to get out there because I finally feel physically able to run again, like on somewhat difficult trails and like not just have to hike most of it. So it just fit into the schedule nicely, and I figured I'd just use it as another training run just to kind of keep my legs going. So yeah, I guess moving on to the actual race itself, I guess expectations going in, I kind of had hoped just to do sub 2 hours for the half. I actually did this race last year. Courtney did the 5K.
Yeah.
So I had some reference of what I could do. And last year I did a 1:53, I think was my time, which was good enough for, I think, 17th place overall. And so I was hoping it would be great to do better than that, but I know I'm not at the same point I was last year. I was really fresh last year, had decent training, and I was doing a lot more road work than I am now. So I figured I probably wasn't going to do faster than that, but I thought, I could do sub 2 hours. I should be able to do that. So I was kind of just hoping to go out at like a 9-ish minute pace and just kind of hopefully do a negative split. And that was the plan for me, at least going in. What did you plan to do?
I didn't really have much of a plan. My plan really was just to be under 3 hours or around 3 hours is what my plan was. So
what kind of a pace is that?
About 13, around like 13 minutes per mile.
So that was kind of the pace you were shooting for, which is not too far off of a walking pace. But...
Yep, I walked a lot.
But yeah, I mean, if you haven't ran in a while, yeah. And it's a deceptively hard course. So anyways, as for the actual race, like I mentioned, it's later in the day. So the marathoners actually start a couple hours beforehand. They don't take a shuttle. They just do an out and back. And we just do the last half of that for the half marathon. So we take a shuttle down to the starting point. And then the weather was decent, actually. It was raining and really bad all around that week. Mm-hmm. But then for the actual race day, the weather was almost perfect.
Yeah.
You couldn't ask for better weather, really, for that race. I mean, it was kind of colder.
There was no wind, though, really, and there was no rain.
Yeah, I think it was maybe upper 30s at the very start, and it kind of warmed up a little bit. So it was probably 40s or something like that, which is a little cold, but it was fine.
Yeah.
And I got to try out my Territory Runco sleeves. It was first time really running in those, which was really cool. I liked them a lot. So the start of the race, I didn't know how I was going to feel, so I was just like going to go out at like a 9-minute-ish pace and just see how I felt. And, maybe if there was somebody floating around me, just kind of try and run with them. It definitely had more of a road vibe, the actual race itself.
For sure had a road vibe.
Didn't really feel like a trail race, but that was fine. And I kind of expected that, having ran it the year before. So there's a couple aid stations. Almost every 3 miles there's an aid station. So there's one at 3 miles, 6 miles, and then 10 miles.
Yeah, 10 miles, yeah.
And then you're finished at 13.1. So I just kind of played it by ear, really. I mean, my whole race went pretty well. I didn't really feel too bad or anything like that. The last, I guess I hit like a mini wall maybe at like mile 7 or so. I just remember thinking like, man, I sure wish the aid station was coming at mile 9 instead of mile 10. Because I didn't bring any water or anything like that. I just brought, I did wear a vest, but it was just to hold my phone. And so overall, I actually was at like an 8:30 pace for most of the race, which wasn't my plan, but I just was kind of feeling good. And so I just kept cruising. And then towards the end of the race, I felt the elevation start to catch up with me a little bit. So my pace kind of went a little worse. And I think I was closer to, a 9-minute pace for the last probably 4 miles. Which was kind of a bummer for me because I prefer to finish strong like the last couple miles, and it definitely wasn't that. I was feeling it hard. My heart rate was way higher than I wanted it to be, but I put in a good effort, so I felt good about that. But overall, I felt like I probably should have done a little bit better. So I ended up finishing 1:54, so like a minute slower than last year. Which overall I'm really happy with. But yeah, just looking back at the race, it's easy to look at certain parts of it and think like, oh man, I should have, toned it down a bit on that part, or I should have kicked it up a bit the last bit. And yeah, overall I didn't have any problems aside from my feet started to hurt. Definitely towards the end of the race, like the last 3 miles, my feet were actually killing me. Like I could feel I had some blisters and stuff, which never happens to me. Usually I almost never have bad blisters, especially that short of a race. So yeah. I attributed that to my shoes that I was wearing. And I'm sure it was the shoes, and then that combination of the sharp, jagged rocks that are sticking out of the ground everywhere that are just like cemented in there almost, it feels like. But yeah, overall for me, the race was great.
For me, I kind of went into it with an approach of taking it aid station by aid station because I knew I hadn't trained at all, really. So my goal was to be able to run at least the first 2 to 3 miles without having to stop. And I wanted to take advantage of the aid stations. I had water with me, but I didn't really drink much of my water at all. I just used the aid stations, actually. So the first 3 miles, I felt really good, really strong. My pace was about 11 minutes per mile, and I ran all 3 miles. I stopped to walk when I got to the aid station, and after that aid station, I walked so I told myself I'd walk for 0.25 miles, and then I'd run 3 miles and walk 0.25 and continue that until the end. And so I did that until mile 6, and then at mile 6, there was this older lady that fell in front of me. And so, and she was having a hard time. She wanted to walk with somebody. So I think we walked for a half a mile or so. We walked together and just talked. And we came up on the aid station just a little before she had fallen. So we got some drinks at the aid station and just walked a little bit. And then after that, my hands started doing something really weird. They were like super swollen. And I'm not sure if it was the cold weather. I'm not sure if it had to do with me like running and then walking, or I really don't know what it was. But from that point, mile like 6.5 until the finish, my hands were killing me. They were so swollen I couldn't bend them. Anytime I would run, my heart rate would just spike instantly. I was at 180 like the minute I would start running, and it would just go up to like 190. So really from mile 6.5 until the finish, it was incredibly hard for me to try to run at all. I was walking quite a bit of it. I would run like 0.75 and then I'd have to walk, and then I'd run and walk. And that's kind of how the rest of the race went for me until the end. And my hands actually the swelling didn't go down until probably just getting home. So about 4 hours after the race. And I'm not sure what it was. There was pine that probably could have been it, but I don't know. But that was the worst pain ever. But yeah, I mean, the first 6 miles were good, and then the rest was just terrible. I was slow. I walked a lot, and I didn't really do much of anything.
Yeah, well, I don't think I talked to one guy during the race. I actually ran with a guy for the majority of the race. I think it was probably, 7 or so miles that I was just like almost using him as a pacer. He was just running in front of me, and it was a really comfortable pace for that time. And so I kind of just stuck with him because I was like, whatever, it's just easier to run next to somebody or behind somebody. And I did pass him at the end, which I kind of felt a little bit bad about because it was clear he was like giving it all he had the last like mile, and I was kind of cruising. And then, when I knew there was about a half mile left, I just turned it on and kind of sprinted it in. But
there was quite a bit of people I was following too. There was these 2 older ladies that they seemed to just be walking, talking, having fun, running when they could. And they would pass me, I'd pass them, they would pass me, same thing. And then that older lady too that had fallen, she was a pretty good runner. She said she got first in her age group last year for that race, but she ended up just going on ahead of me. And then there was 2 guys as well that continued to do the same thing. Like they would pass me, I would pass them. I don't recall in the end who ended up going first, but I think I got around 3 hours and a minute or something like that at the finish. So pretty close to my goal.
Yeah, well, I guess. Oh yeah, so I got 22nd place overall this year. So a little bit worse than last year, just like my time.
I don't remember what I got.
I think you were like 99 or something out of 140.
Okay.
So yeah, I think there was 140 finishers or something like that. And so yeah, I mean, I was pretty happy overall with my placing and my time, considering all things considered. And the race itself. So another thing to mention is the cost of this race is only $33.
Oh yeah.
For the half, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's a great price.
You get a finisher medal, which kind of sucks, to be fair.
It's like a wood little plaque.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
It's kind of clunky and bad, but for $33, not only do you get that finisher medal, but you also get they have a decent amount of food and drinks and things like that.
Yeah.
So the post race party is pretty good, especially for $33. I mean.
I don't even remember what was at the aid stations. All I got was
they had like water and soda and Gatorade. It definitely wasn't like the typical ultra food where there's like gummy bears and things like that. Yeah. Although I do think they had a couple like little candies. But yeah, definitely not the typical like ultra fare you'd find out on the trails. But man, for $33, yeah, it's hard to beat. And the course, although it's hard to get lost anyways, it was marked good enough to where I'd be surprised if anyone got lost or off course.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they organized it really well. Everyone seemed to be having a pretty good time out there. There was some suffering for sure.
Yeah.
You could tell a lot of people, this is probably their first like half marathon or, their first trail race, in quotations, because it's, I guess it's a trail, but it's as close to a road trail as you can get, I guess. I don't know. I guess, yeah, overall, I don't have much negative to say about the race itself. It's just the actual trail kind of sucks. Yeah. I wouldn't run on that really.
No, the rocks were really brutal. It was really daunting from like my feet hurt really bad. And I don't think I got any blisters, but I definitely felt it at the end. The last 2 miles, my feet were like on fire. It was just like the insides of my feet from having like slanting my feet just so often in every which way. It just hurt so bad to have to.
Yeah, well, you're running along and then all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, some solid rock that's just at a weird angle. You hit your ankle and you're like, bah! And then, yeah, just that adds up over the course of the race, which is why I was saying I'm surprised people can even do the marathon in that because the rocks are so bad. And yeah, your neck is hurting because you're looking down the whole time trying to make sure you're not tripping up on some rock or whatever. Luckily, I didn't fall or anything like that during the race. That'd be a bad one to fall on with all the jagged rocks.
Cut yourself for sure.
So yeah, I wouldn't run on that trail if it was around my house. Probably, I'd almost rather run on roads. But aside from the trail, everything else was great. I mean, the race was organized really well. They had cold Pepsis at the end of it, which was cool.
Which I didn't get because I finished too late.
Yeah, they were all gone by then. But
I did eat a nice apple though. That was a good apple.
Yeah, and they have like a bunch of hot food, so they had like chili and soup and things like that, which I didn't partake in, but. There's also a bunch of facilities around that area, so it all takes place in like the community center. That's kind of the hub for the whole race. It's nice. It's just like this little small town feel and vibe. So it's a really cool race, and I'd encourage anyone to check it out. Don't be too deterred by my description of the actual trail.
It's a really good first half marathon race too, because I mean I hadn't ran it all.
I don't know about that.
Really, I hadn't ran it all, and I felt like it was pretty good.
Well, not for your first half. I wouldn't say do it as your first half. Yeah, that sucks. I would do almost any other one around here because, like I said, you're not really getting that good of a trail experience.
Yeah, I guess. The elevation is
and it's kind of hard. Like it's rocky and
yeah.
I don't know. Like I'd rather go up north and do like a Bellingham type half or something like that. Just because, I don't know. For me personally, it's prettier to be like deep in the woods than it is to just be running alongside a road.
Well, I definitely agree with that. But I feel like either race, you'd be looking down quite a bit if it was your first anyways, just because of the footing on trails.
Yeah, depending on how much you're practicing and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. The Chuckanut area up in Bellingham certainly has its own amount of roots and rocks and stuff that can trip you up. But I mean, if you're in the area, like I said, the drive there is also beautiful if you're from Portland or Seattle or whatever. Just that Columbia River Road area is just beautiful. And I mean, you can stop at Multnomah Falls along the way, even though that got affected by the forest fires. But you can still stop by there and check that out, which is amazing.
And you see it on your drive too, so if you can't stop.
Yeah, you can see all the gorge waterfalls and stuff as you're driving. Which is too bad that the gorge waterfall, speaking of that, just that the race itself it's not going to happen for 2019 either. That was on my bucket list. And I guess we'll talk about that in another episode for what's coming in 2019. But yeah, it's a bit of a bummer that race isn't happening. The gorge waterfall is 100K and I think 50K, put on by Rain Shadow Running, I believe. Anyways. Yeah, so post-race, I finished, like I said, just under 2 hours, and so I had like an hour to wait for Courtney. And actually my knee was kind of messed up, which
I forgot.
It felt fine during the race. It was just after the race, after I changed and kind of sat for a bit in the car and drank my Pepsi. I just noticed like bending it just felt weird and it kind of hurt. And so I don't know what it was. I'm sure it was just like I tweaked it on while I was running, like on one of the rocks or something like that. But for like 2 or 3 days after, my knee just like didn't feel right when I bent it, like it was crooked or something like that. But that was pretty much it for pain for me, aside from obviously my feet. It was just, my knee felt a little weird.
I was really sore afterwards. When we got done, we pretty much left right away. I just got an apple and some water and then changed my clothes, and we were on the road right away. And definitely sitting in the car for 4 hours, my muscles got really tight. I had to move my legs quite a bit, and I could feel them just tightening up. So I was definitely more sore than I should have been. But I felt fine the next day. It was just the day of sitting in the car all that time, I think.
Yeah, and running that distance and then just sitting in a car for 4 hours is kind of brutal.
It was.
So it makes it a little rough. But, I mean, overall, I don't know. I will probably not go back next year just because
I wouldn't ever want to do it again. I think that's the first thing I said when I finished was I don't ever want to do this race again.
Yeah, I remember at mile 9 or something, I'm like, oh, God, I forgot how bad this trail is. Like, I forgot how much this hurts my feet to do this trail. Like, it felt like I was damaging my feet. They were just like, they felt like they were getting beat up, basically. It just felt like somebody was stabbing my feet with little sharp objects. So.
Well, and it's funny because I remember doing it last year, the 5K, and I remember feeling that. Like, I only did 3 miles, and the whole 3 miles, I'm pretty sure, was on those rocks. And I just remember being so angry. And at the time, I was, if you can believe it, far more out of shape than I am now. And my calves were on fire just because of the way that the rocks were aligned. It just, every step I took, my calves were killing me. And so I don't know how I really forgot that, but somehow I did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it takes place, the timing works out well for a lot of people, and there's not much else going on. Aside from, Destination Trail does put on the Bellingham Trail Marathon and Half Marathon, which that was the other race we were thinking about doing. It was between these two. I mean, we knew we were going to race that weekend. It was just which one of these two to do. And I'm happy we chose that. Although, like I said, I do love the Bellingham area and the Chuckanut Mountains and stuff. It's awesome. So I'm sure we would have had a good time either way. Although I think the weather was much worse up north than it was down south. Yeah. So we probably dodged a bullet there a bit, I guess. And I mean, overall, that race is a lot harder. It's very technically
hard. And I think it had like 3,000 feet of gain, and this one only had 500. So yeah, I would have died.
Yeah, you might have struggled a bit more in that Chuckanut one, but yeah. So, and to be fair, I love those. Candace does a great job with Destination Trail. I mean, all their races are really awesome and put together very well. Yep. I guess we haven't done one.
It's been a while.
Yeah, we haven't reviewed one or gone over one in the podcast yet, but shout out to them. They do a great job, and I'm sure we'll be doing more of her races in the coming years or months or whatever. I'm sure we'll talk about it in our post or our 2019 preview. Yeah, I don't know what else to talk about for this race. I think that's pretty much it, I guess. Yeah, post race, like I said, we just I waited for Courtney, and then we ate a little bit, and then we booked it out of there and just drove back home. So what do you got going on in the future? What do you got a next race planned, or is there anything?
So far, I'm only signed up for 50K next year. So I'm really hoping that for this one I train. I have set up a marathon.
Track record is not looking good.
I know. I set up a marathon training plan, but I haven't stuck with it. So we're about 2 weeks in, and this week I did do a 5-mile run, which was really good. And then I worked quite a bit the past couple of days, and now my feet are giving me a hard time. So I don't really know.
Yeah, well, there's nothing immediately on the calendar for me the rest of this year. Although I would definitely like to do something in December, but there's just not much available. I was going to say,
is there anything available?
Not really. I mean, there's the only one that comes to mind off the top of my head. I think is it the Pigtails or something? Maybe it's that. I don't know. There's some 50K that's really flat that looks horrible that I don't want to do, but maybe we'll do that. I don't know. We'll have to look at it. But alternately, we might just do like a fun 5K or something, like a road race. It'd be kind of cool to try to push sub 20. That's been a goal of mine for a bit that I just haven't worked towards. But I would like to do that in a 5K, and I think I probably could in a race environment or atmosphere. So maybe we'll do that. Yeah, maybe like a hot chocolate run or whatever the heck they are.
I'd like that.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to do something in December. Because then we'll have done a race in every month except February.
And I mean, to be fair, we signed up for one in February, but...
Yeah, Fragrance Lake got canceled because of that weird plane crash.
Oh,
yeah.
The plane. That's what it was, not the train.
Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully something going on in December. We'll see about that. If not, I guess I did want to do 2 episodes of the podcast that weren't specifically related to a single race. We're going to do a 2018 wrap up, which basically we're just going to go over all the races we did in 2018 and just kind of quickly talk about, what was the best, the worst, the funnest, whatever. Just talk about the year as a whole and how it kind of panned out, and then have like a 2019 preview, talk about the races we'd like to do. I mean, some of that is lottery based, so we won't know for sure until names get drawn or don't get drawn. We've already been declined from one. What was that? The Sun Mountain 25K, I guess. We didn't get into that. But I did sign up for the Sun Mountain 50 miler, but we'll talk about that in a later episode. So that's pretty much it. Look for those two. Hopefully they'll probably drop this year. I don't know if it'll be December or who knows. We might do them sooner than that. And that's pretty much it. You got anything else you wanted to talk about or mention?
I don't think so.
No big plans coming up?
Hopefully training.
Yeah.
I really need to get on that because you can't do a race if you don't train. And I've definitely experienced that in pretty much all of my races. So.
Well, I mean, you can.
Well, you don't do well.
You can, but yeah, you don't necessarily do well,
Which is
and it's
why
not
my
easy.
timing is close to last for pretty much every race.
Yeah, that ultra sign up percentage is
50%.
Yeah, it's kind of low. But I mean, mine's not too good either, to be honest. But whatever. What are you gonna do?
I mean, we're doing it.
We're doing it. It's fun. It's certainly fun. So, yep. I guess look for those episodes, and that's it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys
later.
next time. Or listening, I should say. See ya. Bye.
Bye.